We are dealing with trillions of metrics per day. We're dealing with terabytes of logs. We are monitoring about 4.5 million devices across our entire customer base.
For traditional MSPs, how do you see this particular tool helping them service large amount of customers?
In terms of their usage, and the product also has to have some capabilities, multi-tenancy. There are some MSP-specific capabilities which the product needs to have. Definitely, AI is going to be playing a big part. We talked about Agentic AI, and as I mentioned, there is going to be more and more opportunities for us to unlock use cases. We need to continue to advance on.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode where we are diving deep into the future of enterprise technology and intelligent operations. I'm your host Ankita Kulkarni and I'm joined by my co-host Omkar Chowdhari, Chief Technology Officer at Wai Technologies. With over 2 decades of experience, Omkar has been leading the charge in digital acceleration and intelligent enterprise transformation at Wai. He oversees the development of scalable, AI-powered applications that blend automation, cloud, and modern development practices to deliver real business impact. And today, we're thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Nitin Navare, Chief Technology Officer at LogicMonitor. Nitin brings over 20 years of experience in building enterprise-grade software and has been a trailblazer in the world of observability and monitoring. He has led globally distributed teams across engineering, cloud operations, UX, and data science, and played a key role in delivering BMC Software's first SaaS monitoring product. Currently, at LogicMonitor, he leads engineering and cloud operations, driving innovation across a rapidly evolving observability platform. When he's not scaling infrastructure, you'll find him on the cricket pitch, squash court, or improving his guitar skills. With Nitin's depth in platform engineering and observability and Omkar's hands-on experience implementing intelligent systems for enterprise clients, this conversation promises to be insightful. Let's dive right in. Nitin, welcome to our Wai Involve Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here today with us.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
So Nitin, it would be a question for everybody and I would want you to help our audience understand some background on your journey in observability. What does it mean and how has the definition evolved in the past few years?
Sure. So I'm going to probably date myself by saying this, but I've been in this observability space for about 25 plus years. And yes, the definition, the terminology itself has evolved over the years. So I think when I started back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it used to be called service assurance. It used to be called monitoring. Then it evolved to performance and availability, performance and analytics. I think the observability terminology itself has come up maybe in the last 5-10 years. And it actually means different things for different personas. So for example, if you're looking at an application developer, for them, the observability means metrics, logs, and traces. If you look at IT ops persona, they are looking at observability in terms of infrastructure monitoring. So there's a term called as IT infrastructure monitoring, which is commonly used. If you're looking at somebody who has, say, websites, running their business on websites, then there is a term called as digital experience monitoring. Sometimes developers also refer to observability as application performance monitoring. So depending on the persona, the definition changes. The way I look at observability, it's actually across all of and the entire infrastructure, which includes the infrastructure supporting the applications. It includes looking at the applications themselves. All of that is included in what I would call as end-to-end observability.
So Nitin, you rightly mentioned about end-to-end observability, right? It's a buzzword these days. So in practical, but can you explain that in practical enterprise environments, what does it really mean and how can organizations avoid infrastructure and application blind spots?
Yeah, so it's maybe a buzzword, but it actually has some connotations around it. So first and foremost, traditionally for observability, the different personas which I mentioned, they ended up using different tools. So an application developer could end up using some set of tools, maybe open source, maybe some proprietary. Similarly, somebody sitting in IT would be using a different tool for network observability, database observability, etc. So in this case, when I say end-to-end observability, first is there is a need to have visibility into all of these things which I mentioned. And ideally, you want a single pane of glass. You don't want to have multiple tools. We sometimes call it the swivel chair effect, which is basically you're moving from one tool to another. And then the information and the context is not necessarily shared across those tools. So that's a very important consideration. Then the other consideration is that, for example, sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, people associate observability with metrics, logs, and traces. It's not that. You have to be able to deal with variety of data. You need to have topology information. You need to have config information. So that's the other aspect of end-to-end observability. So having that kind of visibility, being able to access that variety of the data, and be able to share the context is what I would call as end-to-end observability.
And Nitin, where do you see observability coming into picture in SDLC, software development life cycle? Do you see that coming when you go into production, or do you see that playing a role in the journey itself?
It does. Actually, it varies. So I can say that, for example, if you're building a new application, even before it goes into production, you want to assess the reliability and performance of that application. So you can have some point tools, or you can actually deploy it in maybe a QA environment, and you have the observability tools which are actually looking at, say, the CPU utilization, the web response times, etc. So in that example, it is actually coming in before production. But this is, again, you're talking about an application developer persona. So they may do it before production and after production. But if you're operating from an IT perspective, everything is pretty much in production. I'm not talking about applications, I'm talking about the infrastructure itself, right? Your wireless access points, your edge routers are operating in real life production, and they need to basically have, there should be tools which are observing the characteristics of all of those infrastructure elements.
Right. We use Azure predominantly, and we have a lot of Azure monitoring tools like Azure Monitor, then we have application insight. Why should we go for something which is like, you talked about LogicMonitor? What sort of benefits do I see, or should I see when I have this tool implemented or used on my side?
Sure. So what you're describing is a very, very specific application or a developer-oriented viewpoint, which is, hey, I have this application, I'm running this on Azure, why do I need to have an observability tool? Sure, and maybe Azure provides you some basic, just like AWS does on CloudWatch, basic metrics which you can use. But typical, even a medium-sized company or a large enterprise, it's not just about I have these workloads on Azure. Most of the customers and I think most of the enterprises are hybrid in nature. When I say hybrid, that means, first of all, they are not just entirely on cloud. Even if they are on cloud, they are not on one single cloud. They have a combination of Azure, GCP, AWS, etc.
Right.
And then there is the rest of the infrastructure, which has nothing to do with cloud per se, but you have your wireless access points, you have your edge routers,
Right.
You may have your website which you're trying to monitor, which Azure is not necessarily going to do it for you.
Right.
So for those kind of situations, you need to have a holistic view rather than just kind of look at a specific point tool which is going to solve your problem for Azure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
So Nitin, here I would request or rather request you to elaborate on how are you using LogicMonitor as a tool in your own to monitor your own infrastructure
Sure.
and support your customers.
Yeah. Good question. And we do practice what we preach. So we do use LogicMonitor internally to. So let me explain. So we have two personas, and maybe there are lots of organizations who are organized this way. So we have the CIO. The CIO is responsible for basically supporting the employees of LogicMonitor. Yes, there are also like websites, LogicMonitor website, which is also being owned by the CIO. So if you think about it, for the CIO, the consideration is the LogicMonitor website up and running? Are all the internal tools which are being used by the employees, are they up and running? We have various office locations distributed across the globe. So is the office infrastructure working? Are the Zoom rooms operating? We were just talking and we had challenges with the monitor connectivity. So all of those kind of things are IT related challenges which require a tool for you to be able to have that visibility into your infrastructure. So that's one part of how LogicMonitor is being used within LogicMonitor itself, and then that's how many of our customers use. That's basically the IT use case. The second part is me as a CTO, I have responsibility for product delivery, which is basically building the product and also running the product. So cloud operations, platform engineering, SREs, right? So we have a very large, we have a lot of customers, 2,500 plus customers, and we are operating at a massive scale. So just to give you guys an example, we are dealing with trillions of metrics per day. We're dealing with terabytes of logs. We are monitoring about 4.5 million devices across our entire customer base, which means that there is also a complex ecosystem, a set of microservices which are being run in order to be able to deal with that load and be able to support all the use cases for the customers. So we are internally using LogicMonitor to monitor this infrastructure and the applications. So pretty much we do practice what we preach. It's not like we actually use our product to be able to support the business. And we have, for that, we monitor the infrastructure, we monitor the applications, we get logs. So there are all these capabilities which we have in the product, which we use ourselves. In fact, there are many times we have new capabilities. We first try them out internally. That actually serves two purposes. One is it obviously improves the quality. It also allows us to be able to relate to the customer problem in a much better way and allows us to improve the capabilities and then obviously make sure that the product is up and running.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. I think the audience as well as we got to know a lot of clarity of LogicMonitor.
And look at the kind of data they handle. I think it is substantial in nature. And if you have this kind of platform which can handle ingest large amount of data and process it, I think that is fantastic.
Yeah, we are very, very proud of that.
All right, that brings me to the next question. We have AI all around the world that's, playing a major role in everything. So with AI and automation becoming more embedded in operations, what's your take on the evolution from traditional AIOps to what you're calling as Agentic AIOps?
Yeah, no conversation can be had without talking about AI. So I'll maybe take a few steps back. So within the observability ecosystem, the term AIOps has also been around, and it's also gone through a bunch of evolution over a period of time. So first and foremost, I view AI as an umbrella term. More recently, everybody is associating AI with Gen AI, ChatGPT. Obviously, that is going to be playing an important part in the evolution of the tool. But AI, in the broader terms, includes capabilities such as anomaly detection, event correlation, etc. So those are all, I guess, you could consider them as part of the traditional AIOps capabilities, and those will continue to advance because when you're dealing with such volume of data, even the customers, they need to have mechanisms to be able to separate the signal from the noise. They need to have mechanisms to get to the root cause as quickly as possible. So the traditional AIOps approach does help them towards that goal. Now, when we talk about agentic AIOps, we now have, with the advent of ChatGPT and similar tools, Gen AI in general, we now have an opportunity for us to not only, say, reduce noise, identify anomalies, but be able to actually act upon these kind of signals which you're getting. So the next evolution would be the agent within the tool, so what we call as agentic AIOps, is going to be able to analyze the problem, identify the root cause, and again, this would be obviously an evolution, also resolve the problem, right? Maybe the first step could be it will suggest that these are the things which I'm going to do for you. Would you like me to go ahead? But very soon, you're going to just go ahead and resolve the problem. And that basically reduces the pain from a customer perspective. So those are the kind of things which we have opportunities to do. I just took one example from a troubleshooting use case, but there are lots of these kind of opportunities, even like in terms of managing your configurations, etc. All of those things, we have the opportunity with the advance of this technology to unlock those kind of use cases.
Right, and that's pretty nice, and I can see a lot of self-healing capabilities being built here. For traditional MSPs, how do you see this particular tool helping them service large amount of customers?
Yeah, I think in that sense, from my perspective and even from a product perspective, we don't necessarily distinguish between MSP and a traditional IT ops persona. Not that they are doing the exact same thing. They have a different sales motion. In some cases, the tool itself is abstracted from their customers. But in terms of their usage, and the product also has to have some capabilities, multi-tenancy. There are some MSP-specific capabilities which the product needs to have. But all said and done, I don't necessarily distinguish between what MSPs will be able to do versus a standard enterprise will be able to do in terms of being able to remediate, etc. Now, there might be certain aspects in terms of what sort of security controls which are in place, what sort of access controls which are in place, and that's going to be specific to the implementation.
So Nitin, here can you highlight the measurable ROIs by leveraging the observability tool?
Sure, yeah. So there are different aspects. So the most common aspect is the MTTR, mean time to repair. And that's essentially you got a outage or some sort of a problem and how quickly you're able to get to the root cause and be able to resolve it. So that's, I think, mostly generally, most observability tools are measured by that traditionally. And then generally what sort of information you have for your incident response so that you can get to the root cause faster. But at the same time, so that's a reactive scenario. There is also a set of proactive scenarios. For example, you're doing capacity planning. You want to look at the utilization of the resources which you have. You want to look at the patterns which you are seeing in terms of the utilization so that you can decide, hey, my disk is going to run out, or I'm seeing that all my workloads are pretty much maxed out in terms of the available capacity and I need to start planning ahead of it. That would be another ROI in terms of being able to leverage the observability tool. The third area would be, because of the virtue of collecting all of this data, we also have opportunities to be able to optimize the cost. And this particularly comes up, it comes up in both on-prem and cloud, but more so maybe people will be able to relate to this for cloud workloads. It's like, yeah, everything is fine. You have deployed a bunch of infrastructure, but it is not necessarily being used.
Right.
And that's an opportunity for you to save costs.
Yeah, I've seen that happening quite often, and customers typically ask us to look at the cost factor and they want to keep that cost low or in their specific number. How do you see tool like these helping our customers keep that cost at a...
Yeah, because you can, and LogicMonitor does have that capability where we can actually show that, hey, you have this bunch of EC2s which are underutilized, or you have EBS volumes which are unattached, right? So these are machines which are idle, right? So, and by the way, so that's, I think everybody can relate to that because that's been a standard problem for, cloud makes it easy for you to deploy new resources, but also makes it easy for you to spend a lot of money without actually utilizing that. And then now with AI in the mix, there is more spend which is now happening even on the AI infrastructure. You can see based on how well the NVIDIA stock is doing, definitely people are buying a lot of capacity from an AI perspective. But then the question is that being utilized? Are you tracking how much you are spending? Maybe you have a subscription with OpenAI. Are you tracking what your usage is? And are you tracking the spend associated with it? What are the opportunities you have to reduce your spend? Or I should say, more than reduce your spend, are you spending the dollars in the right way, and are you utilizing whatever you're spending for?
That makes sense.
So you have been working in this observability space for some time, right? Now, so looking ahead, what is the major shift you are seeing in the observability that is coming in the next 2-3 years or down the line?
I think all conversations lead to AI. Kidding aside, definitely AI is going to be playing a big part. We talked about Agentic AI. And as I mentioned, there is going to be more and more opportunities for us to unlock use cases. We need to continue to advance on if you want to call it the traditional AI approach, essentially being able to separate the signal from the noise and be helping the customers to get to the root cause as quickly as possible. Also, being an observability tool, we have to constantly stay ahead or at least current with whatever evolutions which are happening in the industry. So when people are using AI workloads, guess what? As a monitoring tool, you have to have the ability for you to be able to monitor those workloads. When Kubernetes came out, we actually had a solution right away for the customers to be able to. So that's what makes it interesting, really, because you get to know about the various technologies which are being adopted, and then because we get the request from our customers to be able to. So that will continue. I think the other thing is that the way, and this is going to happen not just in observability rules, probably across across the industry, is way the users interact with the tool is going to shift. The traditional UI approach, workflow approach, probably will end up changing to a more chat interface, and then obviously the agentic stuff will make it even more powerful. But those are the kind of trends which I'm seeing.
Absolutely. And when you talk about this kind of chat kind of interface, which allows us to interact with even with observability platform, what sort of analytics can we retrieve out of it? Do you see a lot of analytics coming out of it based on questions that you type in, queries that you have?
Definitely, because there is so much data which the observability tools have. I mean, from a LogicMonitor perspective, we have the metrics, logs, traces, we have topology, we have config. I'm probably missing out on a few other types of data, but there is so much data, so the distillation of the data becomes important, and then being able to kind of summarize it in the right form and using that data to perform the appropriate action. And if not to do it automatically, at least to be able to recommend that action becomes very critical and also possible because of the fact that we have that information.
Right, and that kind of advice is really useful. I see human in the loop. Now I'm happy.
Yeah, no, I mean, human in the loop, it's going to evolve.
Yeah.
For certain things, there will be human in the loop to review what the recommendations are, particularly when the changes are going to be destructive. When I say destructive, meaning that there is actually a change which is being affected to the infrastructure. So you at least want to have some sort of assurance that you have the opportunity to review that.
Right.
But that also is going to be a stepping stone. I think at some point you're going to get the confidence. I mean, the best analogy I can probably think of right now off the cuff is when you're driving your car, reversing. Earlier you used to look back, reverse.
Right.
Now you trust the camera, and now guess what? There's also an automated parking thing, and right now maybe 50% of the people trust it, the rest don't, but it will eventually get to 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was really insightful, and I'm taking some extra knowledge with me back. It was a pleasure hosting you, Nitin. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm sure there's been an insightful conversation to the audience as well.
Thank you. This was great.
That wraps up today's episode. We are sure Nitin's insight gave you a fresh perspective on what it takes to lead tech innovation at scale. If you found this conversation valuable, there's more to come. Join our community to stay connected with like-minded professionals. Stay tuned for more impactful episodes from the world of tech. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch full episodes and behind the scenes content. Until then, thanks for watching.